Everyone loves a dark horse, an underdog story, someone who has been beaten down and left with little hope. These 5 teams have all been in that situation this season, given little chance to turn their seasons around. And just like last year's Chiefs, we see it every year. Let's check out the 5 teams who have done the improbable. Number 1, the Tennessee Titans. The Titans have seemed to figure out their answer for their long-term quarterback. Even though they had a poor season last year, they seemed ready to improve, led by Marcus Mariota. The Titans also drastically improved their run game, adding DeMarco Murray, who led the league in rushing yards in 2014, and they added Heisman Trophy winner Derrick Henry, who was an absolute bruiser. But starting this season, Mariota was a turnover machine through their first 4 games. Minnesota had 2 defensive touchdowns versus the Titans due to Mariota's turnovers, which was the main reason why they lost that game. And through 4 games, the Titans were 1-3, and since 1990, only 14% of teams that start 1-3 have made the playoffs. And that's where things started to look up for the Titans. Their rush offense had been consistent all year on the legs of DeMarco Murray, but now Derrick Henry had started to truly make his impact, and Marcus Mariota started to become more efficient with way less turnovers and more touchdowns. The Titans have won 7 of 10, including 3 straight, which has ultimately saved their playoff chances. Their last 2 wins came against the Denver Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs, and they played in Kansas City, where they were clutch, being down 17-7 entering the 4th. Ultimately pulling out the improbable with a last-second field goal. And currently, the Titans are barely staying afloat in the playoff picture, but truly control their own destiny. They will be pretty much playing for the divisional championship versus the Houston Texans in the last game of the season. Number 2, the New York Giants. Starting this year off with questions about Odell Beckham Jr.'s personality becoming a distraction had started some league-wide buzz, and he had a rough start to the year, along with the Giants overall as a team, starting 2-3, which was last in their division at the time. Their division was shaping up to be one of the best divisions in football, but in their 3rd loss of the season, which came against the Green Bay Packers, OBJ had finally caught a touchdown pass, which seemed to ease everything up for this offense. And the very next game, he would dominate, scoring 2 touchdowns on 222 yards. What's funny about this is I released a video about Odell literally hours before the game. In the video, I talked about his recent struggles, but he has vastly improved since then. With the resurgence of this offense, it also helps that their defense has started to dominate, causing nightmares with their tenacious pass rush, which includes being the team that finally ended Dallas's huge win streak. The Giants have won 8 of 9, and are looking to be one of the top wildcard teams in the NFC, currently one of the hottest teams in football. We've seen this before from the New York Giants, so anything is possible. And what a great turnaround after being in last place in their division after 5 games. Number 3 is the Detroit Lions. This team has done some amazing things. After the announcement that Calvin Johnson was going to retire, analysts and fans were wondering how this offense would adjust. Megatron was one of the greatest receivers of all time, and that's not easy to replace. With the addition of Marvin Jones, it was time for this new offense to step up. It was Matt Stafford's time to prove that he was worthy of a number 1 pick, but problems with this team started to be all around, as they struggled as a whole, which led to a mediocre 1-3 start. But here is where things are kinda strange. Overall, they haven't been the greatest team in terms of production and performance, trailing in the 4th quarter in every single game thus far this season, with the exception of 1 game. Usually that leads to a poor record, which is the case for most bad teams in this league, but the Lions have had 8 4th quarter comebacks. That is insane. Led by MVP candidate Matt Stafford, who has played well all season, but especially stepped up starting week 5. Coming up with a big win against the undefeated Eagles at the time. This started a stretch of 8 games where they won 7. With their bend don't break defense, and Matt Stafford playing at an MVP level, this team has surprised everyone. Their receiving core has proved to be great without Calvin Johnson, with multiple guys stepping up. They have a much more distributed target share, which is much harder to stop than having one elite playmaker. Currently number 1 in their division, the Lions are looking to finish this year as one of the top teams in the NFC. It just makes me wonder how Calvin Johnson feels about all this. Number 4 is the Miami Dolphins. Fans wondered who would take control of this offense, with questions rising if Tannehill is really their guy or not. And after 5 games, his play had been incredibly underwhelming, throwing a horrendous 6 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, leading this team to a 1-4 record, where their only win came against the winless Cleveland Browns in overtime. Questions also rose about their running back situation. After Lamar Miller went to the Texans, someone needed to fill that starting running back role. The Dolphins' answer to that was veteran Arian Foster, who ended up only starting for 1 game, then eventually retiring weeks later. This is where everything changed. After a decent game against the Titans, where Jay Ajayi had scored a touchdown, they decided to give him the keys to the car. And this changed everything. The J Train would go on to have back-to-back 200-yard games, and seemed to light the torch that ignited the rest of the team. They have been on a stretch of games where they have won 8 of 9, and now are projected to have one of the higher playoff wildcard spots in the AFC. Jay Ajayi can also give major props to his O-line, which has started to play great after the first few games. Their first-round draft pick Laramie Tunsil has proven to be a monster, opening holes the size of Texas. With Jay Ajayi surging to stardom, and the improvement of the O-line has clearly helped the pass game out. Ryan Tannehill has got back on his feet and has played pretty well, and even when he went down with injury, Matt Moore has been great so far, proving to be a capable backup. It's just crazy what a little bit of momentum can do. Number 5 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. After winning 6 games last season, the Buccaneers were looking to improve their defense in the NFL draft, which they used their first round pick on Vernon Hargreaves III. But through exactly half of the NFL season this year, the Bucs overall were a laughingstock, posting a 3-5 record and allowing an atrocious 30 points per game, with what seemed to be one of the worst defensive units in football, which includes giving up 37 points to the Rams. Out of all teams, seemingly headed straight toward their 6th straight losing season, here's where things get crazy. Now, they are on pace to do something that no team has done in the 16-game era. Since Week 8, the Bucs have only allowed 12.8 points per game, which includes shutting down Russell Wilson and the Seahawks, holding them to 5 points. Going from giving up 30 points a game during the first half of the season to just giving up 12.8 in the second half is the biggest differential in points during the 16-game era, which started in 1978. Even though they have one of the best defensive tackles in football in Gerald McCoy, who has 6.5 sacks, the true change in this defense and its dominance can be accredited to its amazing pass defense. The passer rating allowed to Russell Wilson, Phillip Rivers, and Drew Brees was 53.5. The league average is 88.0. And this trio of passers managed just 521 yards. That's an average of just 173 yards each. This list of teams truly fit the mold of the old classic cliche, it doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. And to my Cleveland Browns, take notes.